And go ahead, Jane, and introduce our guest today. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
And welcome to our presenter, Julie Andre. In February of 2020, she became the Northcoast Homeshare Program Coordinator at the Area 1 Agency on Aging. Since 2007, she's served and worked locally in different capacities as support to a diversity of vulnerable population age 0 to 92. Can you be an age 0? I thought you had to start with at least day 1. Anyway, welcome, Julie, and we're happy to have you be giving this presentation. Thank you ever so much. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah. I'm just gonna say one individual hello to Sunny, who I've worked before, who's currently one of our approved hosts. So, I'm gonna get started right away because it's a long presentation and I would like to cover as much as possible. All right, let's see. So today we are covering one spare room can change 2 lives, how to safely share your home. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about myself to start with. Let's see, who am I? So I'm a 45-year-old French native. I do have my American citizenship though. I was educated in France and in the US, and I moved for love to Humboldt County in 2005. I started a career in Europe in international marketing with a company called Mapas Pontex International that's similar to 3M or Scotch-Brite, like all those little scrubbers and cleaning gloves, that kind of stuff. But I switched my focus to social services after I moved to the US. Since getting my green card in 2007, I've worked for AmeriCorps, Changing Tides Family Services, the Women, Infant, and Children program. That's where I had some clients who were age 0, and a charter and middle and high school here in Arcata called NPA, where I am still working, very part-time. I am infatuated with the North Coast, the weather, the natural beauty, the opportunities for activities, and the people of the North Coast. I love my community. My professional goal is to support my community members in living a life as fulfilling as they want it to be by providing services that fit our local needs, whether they're educational opportunities with AmeriCorps, housing like the Homeshare program, health and nutrition and activities that I did with Changing Tides and the WIC program. I was awarded the position of Northcoast Homeshare Program Coordinator in February 2020, like Jane mentioned, and that position fit my requirements for meaningful work as well as my skill set of support professional, which I've been since I started working in the US. And for part-time employment, since I also teach French. My supervisor is Megan Gallagher. She's the Information Assistance Manager, and she's also presented on topics for OLLI. So that's it for me. I am right here. Okay, that's our PSA for wearing a mask. So in order to put together this presentation, I used a bunch of sources, and we, Area 1 Agency on Aging, bought the resource guide for establishing a new home sharing program back in 2018 when they were looking at starting this program that is in the end fairly new. So what is home sharing? And again, as Jane and Kim mentioned, you can pipe up or send a message whenever you get a question throughout the presentation. So home sharing is when 2 or more unrelated people share a home to their mutual benefit. The home can be an apartment, a condominium, a mobile home, or a single family house. It can be really anything, as long as it's you know, good to live in, not like a garage, a detached garage with no plumbing, for instance. That wouldn't work. A person offers a private bedroom and shared common areas in exchange for rent, help around the house, or a combination of those 2 things. So home sharing will differ from the typical roommate situation because at its core, it is about two people helping each other. Oops, I need to do this. Oh, oops, well, I didn't want to show that just yet. So every home share arrangement is going to be unique. It will depend on the needs, the time, and the interests and abilities of the people involved. So a very popular example of a home sharing situation on television was the Golden Girls. I don't know if people have watched the show. I personally have never watched the show. In preparation for this presentation, I did watch some clips, like the best moments, or there was also some memes online, and I gotta say, I got a good chuckle. I mean, these ladies seem pretty hilarious, so I might look into that. But that's the idea, even though these two gals, I think, are related. What home sharing is not, it's not. It does not include any type of personal care as part of the service exchange. There's no bathing, toileting, or dressing assistance that could be required from a housemate. It is not an alternative to nursing home care. However, combining home sharing with other supports, such as hired caregiving services, can be a way to stay living in one's home longer. So you could have a housemate who's not providing any of those services, but then the home provider might choose to have, I don't know, for instance, like someone like either an IHSS worker or someone from Visiting Angels coming also and helping out and paying for that. And home sharing is not emergency or short-term housing, since the process of finding the right match takes time. On occasion, I have people contacting me, and of course, mostly it's going to be home seekers, so people looking to rent a room, and they're like, oh, I need to find a room really quickly. I'm in need of housing really fast. You know, I need to be out by like this date, and typically it's going to be like within the next 2 weeks. And I say, well, you know, our minimum is going to be 2 weeks from the time that you submit your completed application and the time that we could potentially find you a match. And that would be provided there is someone out there that would have a room for you. So not emergency or short-term housing either. We're in it for the long run. And it is not a traditional housing program with waiting lists or eligibility-based criteria. So what we're trying to do is to make a match between two people who are the most compatible possible. So we're not looking at applications in the order that they were received. We're really looking at who is going to have the best chance of having compatible lifestyles and moving in together. So this is a poll for you. We'll see if that works out. You know, we'll see who can do it. If you have a smartphone, and I'm going to pull up people on my end. If you have a smartphone, what you could do is, I don't know if you can see me, but you could grab your smartphone and point the camera to the QR code. And once you have the QR code, then you have like a little yellow button that comes up. You don't even have to take a picture. And then you would push that button here. And then you'll have, oops, I'm gonna do it again. Oh, oops. Oh. So you push the button and then you get a link and you can go to Slido and you'll have the questions come up on your phone. So you can do it like that, Or if that doesn't work for you, let's see. I'm gonna keep that active, or you could go on slido.com. And if you're joining as a participant, you would say OLLI right there and push that one. So we'll see who managed to participate. I know it's not as nice as with the traditional Zoom calls, but that's what I was able to put together. All right. So let's see. We have 2 people who have answered so far. So, let's see.
I just wonder if anybody needs help with getting to the survey.
Yes.
Oh, Julie, it looks like some people are going to go ahead and answer in the chat as well.
Yeah, nice.
That's another option.
Okay, yes, perfect. Well, we have 4 people. I was telling Kim, like, if someone asked me to do this in a Zoom presentation, yeah. So if you don't have a smartphone, go ahead and answer in the chat. Yeah. Yeah. And if you could do it on the computer. So if you don't have the smartphone, you could decrease the screen for Zoom and open a new window for slido.com and get in like that. But yeah, so it looks like most people haven't shared their home yet or ever.
Well, Julie, thanks for sharing this new way to take a poll and a survey, and maybe it's something that we can get more familiar with in the future too.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So in the chat, most people haven't, but on the survey, people have shared someone has, so it's really like one person has shared their home a long time ago. Someone has recently shared their home with someone outside of their family. And I think I have a pretty good idea who that might be in the audience. Oh, actually, no, this one I know who that is in the audience. And so we have currently a home provider among us. And also who is approved. Okay, great. So that gives me a good idea.
I'm the home provider. I'm the one who shared my home.
Yeah, is it Sunny? Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we're going to move on. All right.
Julie,
Yeah.
I've also shared my home. I wasn't able to get the Slido to work.
Yeah, and I knew that might not work. So okay, so you used to share your home?
Yes, I did for many years. I rented rooms to college students,
Okay.
and I would have as many as 3 or 4 at a time.
Oh, okay.
And it was very interesting, especially having that many. But
Yeah.
The semesters and the years came to an end, so it made it more manageable, among other things. But I probably dealt with as many as 20 different students.
And how long ago was that?
Up until about 18 or 19 years ago.
Okay. All right. Okay. Great. So you have that experience. Yeah.
Yes.
But we see still that most people in this group haven't, but there's a good, I wasn't expecting that many people to have had that experience of sharing their home. And so, I've shared as a roommate before in my college years, but actually as a young professional, but it wasn't really like a home sharing situation that we're looking at right now. Where 2 people are trying to help each other beyond just the rent aspect of things. So unless somebody wants to say something else, I will continue. So there is a global trend of home sharing. I mean, mostly it's going to be the programs that have traditionally developed, they accommodate matches between an older home provider and a younger home seeker. So that's what, Karen, you were mentioning, that I mean, 20 years ago, you were probably older than the students that you were hosting, right? So that's why it's called, sometimes it's called cross-generational co-living or intergenerational shared housing. I'm looking at the chat just to have shared as roommate. Yeah, so home sharing is really that idea of having like an older home provider in general. Yeah, so thank you for sharing comments as well. So we have a list of countries with known home share organizations, and then, you know, they have to be a part of that website. So maybe there are countries that are doing home sharing but are not part of the website where these countries are recorded. So Asia, we have Japan, Korea. In Europe, we have France, the UK, the Netherlands, Spain, Portugal, Republic of Ireland, Belgium, Sweden, Italy, Austria, Germany, Czech Republic, Switzerland. So quite a few countries in Europe. In the Pacific region, we have Australia, New Zealand, and in North America, we have Canada and USA. And there was no mention of South America. So, but it doesn't mean that they are not part of that trend. But it's really picking up. So this is probably one of my favorite ads or outreach campaigns for home share, and it's from Canada. So he's, once again, that idea is going to be a younger home sharer. He's quite the knitter, and an older home provider who's on the Twitter. So I wanted to show you, and I don't know that I'll do all of them, but I wanted to show you some of those websites and the kind of visuals that they have. So we have, this is Canada. We'll start with the French one because that is where I'm from, but I didn't know about home sharing when I was living in France. So again, visual is this one, older home provider and a younger home sharer. Okay. Sorry. Whew. Oops. So I'm gonna go back to this. And so that's France. We have in the UK, we have a similar idea of older home provider, younger home sharer, right? So potentially also students. Okay, so that's what they're advertising. In Korea, even though we, can't understand anything, it's pretty obvious, right, who the home provider is and who the home sharer is going to be. Australia, I think same thing. Okay, so home provider, home sharer. Okay. However, so when you start looking at, so and I had Sweden's, but I think you get the picture that this is typically going to be more like an intergenerational relationship. Vermont has a different profile advertised. Okay. Then we notice that in the US, it doesn't seem like it's necessarily an intergenerational, cross-generational relationship as far as home sharing. Here, maybe, but not, these women don't seem to be so different in age. And looking at Colorado, I think in Colorado, they were advertising also like that relationship, maybe a younger home share. But then you scroll down and you see that one of their success story is actually between two people who seem a little closer in age, who seem to, closer in generation, not such a big gap. Okay. And then when you look at, so these are really close to our area, right? We have Covia, it's a huge home sharing program. They're always expanding. Their home sharing relationships are also between people who seem pretty close in age. We have these two, but overall, people seem to be, the home share don't seem to be necessarily a young student. Okay. And finally, a home share that is really close to home is Share Sonoma County. And same thing, the visuals are about relationships between people who are pretty close in age. Okay, so we have the global home sharing trend, but then we have something a little bit different, I think, that is happening in the US. Okay, so let me make sure I can do my next slide correctly. Okay. So nationally and statewide for California, I'll address both. So in the US, there are 50 programs offering home sharing services. And this is just I have a link to the website. I won't do that this time around. The longest and most established program is HomeShare Vermont. It was founded in 1982. So it's 40 years old, right? That's about right. For California, there are 18 HomeShare programs in 2021. That's a threefold increase from 6 programs that were recorded, and who knows, there might be programs like ours is not listed on the national website. So, but still, we can tell that there's a huge increase in the interest in home sharing. The most recent is HomeShare Sacramento. In 2020, launched HomeShare Butte County, which is Chico, not too far from home either, and HomeShare Orange County. It's more like an expansion of their housing services down there. And our HomeShare program also launched in 2020. And in California, we have larger home sharing programs. Those will serve densely populated counties, and they have a lot of materials around home sharing too that I use. Locally, what does it look like? So we serve Humboldt and Del Norte counties. I'm going to do a quick history and then I'll have a visual for it. So the reason for the home share program in Humboldt County is that over the years, clients had been contacting Area 1 Agency on Aging to inquire about connecting with a housemate for themselves or family members. So we have a department called Information and Assistance, and that Megan Gallagher supervises. And people call Area 1 Agency on Aging and ask about a number of things. And over the years, people had been calling, asking for, I'm looking for someone to move in with me, like a housemate or someone who'd be willing to share the cost of living because, I have this spare bedroom. And so very informally, they could tell that there was kind of consistent interest in that concept. So in the spring of 2017, about 4 years ago, Area 1 got a grant to conduct 5 focus groups to gauge interest further gauge interest in a home share service. So those groups, those focus groups were conducted in Arcata, McKinleyville, Eureka, Fortuna, and with a group of HSU students. Following those focus groups, the Area 1 Agency on Aging decided to kind of soft launch, what they call a soft launch, so start but not fully manage a home sharing program. It was more a home sharing support services program. It was called The Nest at the time, so some people might remember it as being The Nest. And they were recommending people to use an online platform called Silver Nest that was free, I think, the first month, and then you'd have to pay like $35 a month so that they could do some of the recruiting. Okay, so that wasn't very popular with the people that we were trying to help. In 2019, Area 1 applied for and was awarded a Care for the Poor grant by St. Joseph's Hospital to fund a part-time staff position. So they realized, this concept is not going to really take off unless we provide very specific local services and support to the people who might be interested in doing something like a home sharing arrangement. So in January of 2020, Northcoast Homeshare officially started. I was recruited, I applied in January of 2020 and was recruited in February 2020. And we finalized our first match on February 14th, on Valentine's Day 2020, which went really fast, but of course it had been in the works. People had been submitting applications in the fall of that previous year. So, but I got to tag along and see how the process went. And then a month later, shelter in place due to COVID-19. So that's kind of the history for our program. So basically, spring 2017, we had those focus groups. Spring of 2018, Area 1 launched The Nest, the home sharing support services program, where people had to pay for a fee per month. And in fall 2019, Area 1 was awarded that Care for the Poor, which was going to fund a part-time staff position. And in January of 2020, the Northcoast Homeshare program started officially as a free program to the community. So why is there so much interest for, or why is there increasing interest for home sharing? So first of all, people go to home sharing to ease a financial burden. Living alone is more expensive, and there's been an increase in homelessness amongst people 62 and over, so amongst other people who had never been homeless before. Okay, so it went from to almost 3% of people 62 and over being homeless in 2007, and now we're almost at 5% in 2016. So living together will reduce the individual costs of rent or mortgage, the utilities, transportation, and general living expenses. Okay. So this is an infographic on how high housing costs will force low-income older adults to cut back on other things as well. Okay, so in order to maintain housing, people will choose to cut back on food, healthcare, and savings. So, it's not, home sharing is not just for people who are retired. We look at, 50, 64. Okay. So if it could be a way to, save money for those other expenses, to have someone contributing to the household. Another reason why there's more interest for the home sharing concept is that it will help provide companionship. To have a housemate will help provide a companionship. 13 million people 65 and over live alone, or another way to look at it is 25% of adults 60 and over. And apparently, I did not know about that term. They're called elder orphans. So, you know, I mean, you might be okay with being alone, but it might be that there's a good chance that a lot of those people would rather have someone else around, a little closer, living a little closer. Like most of our lives, we live, you know, in family settings, and then all of a sudden, you find yourself alone. So having a social network and consistent social interactions provide a strong protective effect on seniors' health. So, you know, having that companionship as you find yourself, maybe because, you know, you're not working, might help with just staying healthy longer. So I'm gonna see how this can work out and see and show this video. This is a really sweet video. I'll show us the second part later on in the presentation. This is just to show you what it can look like and the kind of relationship that two housemates that came together within the frame of a home sharing arrangement can have. Let's see.
This seaside verbo.
We're just gonna have to sit through the wonderful ad. Let's see. We can just skip it, actually.
Not poking the fork into the chicken soup.
I just want to ask you, can you guys hear the sound of the video? Could you hear the sound of the video at first?
No.
No? Let me try it again.
So we lose all the juice.
Oh, is that why you weren't allowing me to?
Can you hear it now?
It's very quiet.
Very quiet, okay. I shared the sound and I'm going to optimize for video clip. So let me see if that works better.
That's right.
I had a condo midtown and I was ready to downsize, or right size as I call it. It was more space than I needed and I was paying more for a mortgage than I wanted to be paying as my business kind of slowed down a little bit.
What else do we have to chop up?
That's it.
I retired from the University of Arizona in 2005, just after I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Everything came to a head when I took a very bad fall one night. I realized that I needed to find somebody to live with who had a commitment to me. And I know that if I were to go to assisted living, I couldn't get the quality of care that I'm getting by staying home.
I think there are a lot of people my age who are making lifestyle changes based on financial circumstances. We're trying to anticipate the fact that we may live a heck of a lot longer than we thought.
That looks great.
Does, doesn't it?
If you two were on an even footing, who do you think would be a better cook?
I think that Deb would be the better cook.
Are you just saying that to be polite because she's sitting behind you?
Yes, I'm thinking, what would be the consequences if I said that I was the better cook and I didn't like what I saw?
Sharon was telling a friend about her need for somebody to move in. And my friend Mert happened to say, I think I might know somebody who's interested. Very good.
And Deb called me that very same night, and there was a connection between us.
The day I'd been here for the first time, she said, well, what is it you're really looking for? And I said, intimacy.
And I was a little alarmed because I didn't know what that word meant to her. And when I asked her, she said, it's being on the inside looking out rather than being on the outside looking in. That was a profound statement. One of the
All right. Did that work for you? Were you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. So these two are actually Deb, who's the housemate. They're actually starting to. They've just started, I think, a home sharing program for Tucson, which was not. It just didn't exist so far. So that changed their life. So let me just make sure I have this. I'm just trying to make it work. Okay. I'm just wanting that. There we go. Okay. So another reason for the growing interest is that home sharing brings security and peace of mind. I put down for older children who do not live close by, knowing that someone else can help with emergencies is reassuring. I mean, it can be older children, it can be grandchildren, or it can be any family member who is close to the home provider, close in emotionally, but not necessarily physically. So we have a couple of home providers whose family members are very involved with the home sharing process. And for whatever reason, their family member, their home provider cannot live with them, or sometimes people don't want to live with other family, but they're helping out with the process. Another reason for the growing interest is that people get to share responsibilities, they have complementary abilities. So for instance, a homeowner who would be financially sound, but perhaps burdened by too many household chores, can charge a discounted rent in exchange for household tasks or home maintenance. Okay, that's one way to go about home sharing. For example, one person also may drive or run errands while the other pays a bit more of the bills. So there would be a service attached to the home sharing arrangement. So that's part of a study that 61% of older adults limit their driving to certain hours of the day, and 21% say they frequently or occasionally miss out on activities they like to do because of driving limitations. So we don't have that many home share arrangements where that's the case, but it could be on occasion people say, well, I have macular degeneration, I'm slowly losing my sight, and I like someone, or they can still drive, but I'd like to find someone who could potentially drive me places once I can't drive anymore. Push on this. So that's one of our outreach flyers. That's why we say one spare room can change 2 lives, and improve yours, taking a housemate or home provider. It could be that whatever's going on in their life, there's been some changes to the way they were able to do things, or they're sick of being so isolated, especially with COVID. A housemate, provided it's the right person, could really improve their quality of life. Another outreach flyer lists the benefits of the home share for home providers, because that's who we're trying also to recruit into our program. you know, it will provide that companionship, that maybe a little bit more independence, overnight reassurance, and it would be more low-cost support and peace of mind for family. So we're going to try the poll again, or just write your answer in the chat. Why would you want to share your or someone else's home? So I don't know, maybe some of you are actually looking to move into someone else's home, like Deb in the video we just watched. You know, she was downsizing. She was looking to, she felt like she didn't want to spend that much money on her mortgage, or, you know, and really she wanted that intimacy, right? And I've had providers contact me before who had a perfectly fine, or providers, sorry, potential housemates who had a good housing, but telling me, I feel isolated and I'd like to move in with someone. So what would you want to share your home, you or someone else's home? For financial reasons, to help pay the mortgage or pay less rent, for companionship, to avoid social isolation, for security, to have another person around at night, for instance, for services, to share household chores or skills, for my family's peace of mind, to ease their concerns that I'm alone at home, for independence, to remain living in my community at home, and for my own peace of mind, to help a family member stay at home. So maybe you're not looking to do any of that, but maybe you're thinking, you have someone in mind like, well, you know, a home sharing setup could actually work well for them. So then you would choose that last option. And I'm going to look at the chat. Okay, so most of them, so people are saying most of those reasons would apply. Let's take a look at them. Yeah, financial reason, companionship, security, services, yeah. Yeah, and it's just one person who answered. Let's look at the chat. Financial and companionship. Yeah. Yeah, so just looking at those results. So, and Jane, you're asking for HSU students. They could be, yeah, they could be, I mean, they're shorter, they're shorter, but it's still a pretty long engagement, I would think. I would say at least a few months. I would say at least 6 months. Yeah, so once again, the home sharing arrangement needs to, it will be customized to people's needs. So because you're letting someone come into your home, it's not like you're renting a separate unit where housing law, like fair housing laws would need to apply. You're having to live alongside that person. So you can have specific requirements as to who is going to move into your home with you. We've had home providers ask for a specific gender because they're going to be sharing a bathroom. We had people tell us, I do not want someone who's been a Trump supporter, for instance, you know, or on the other end of the spectrum, you know, I don't want somebody who is not spiritual. Okay. Do you guys have any other questions? And these are really good questions, and we see those on occasion. And I'm looking at a comment. Can you guys see comment on the main screen?
Yeah. People can see comments in the chat.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Of course. What am I saying?
And right now on the screen, we still have your Slido poll results.
All right.
Yeah, so Karen shared that she a note about that she had her students stay for 4 or more years, including their sisters and brothers, which is awesome. And so I don't know, I think you've seen all these questions so far.
All right, so we'll move on. So I've been throwing some terms around home sharing already, but more specifically or more officially, we'll go over the terms. A guest, at least here locally, we talk about guests for home seekers, and hosts are home providers. So I'll kind of go back and forth. It's just the guest, host are nice short words that are easy to refer to, and then it really makes it clear like who's staying where. Okay. And then I've talked about home share arrangements as well. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go. So guest is also called a home sharer. And that would be typically someone who's looking for affordable housing with a rent or service exchange. But as I mentioned, very occasionally, it might be someone who is looking to, just like Deborah in the video, who is looking to actually live with someone, like alongside someone.
Julie, I don't know if you see, there are some questions in the chat. If rental regulations don't apply, what legal requirements do, or is it simply contract law?
My understanding is that it's contract law. And again, you know, some of the things in the agreement, depending on the circumstances, you know, will be, I mean, most of it is going to be binding, of course, but then it, you know, will depend on the circumstances of what happened and etc. But yeah, it is an agreement. I mean, there's plenty of organic home sharing that is happening. You know, I have currently, and I'll talk about her profile. I have a guest, so a home seeker, who has been essentially home sharing for the past few years, but I don't think that they have a contract, right? But they have a verbal agreement, you know, and she's been living at her current home provider's home for 2 years, so she should be getting at least a 60-day notice to vacate, because that's pretty much common practice. So yeah, it would be contract.
And there's a couple more questions. Are the arrangements month to month, and who administers the arrangements? And then there's a question of what do you mean by organic arrangements?
Oh yeah, so organic is like it just happens without any kind of structure facilitating the arrangement. So it's a friend, it's between two friends, or oh, I have a friend who's looking to home share. Oh yeah, you know, I'd like to get a little bit more money each month. So yeah, why don't your friend move in with me? And that friend moves in, gives a check every month, and that's organic. I mean, that's hasn't happened without any kind of facilitation from an outside organization. And what was the previous question you mentioned before that?
Yeah, it's asking about the arrangements, who administers the arrangements, and
Oh yeah,
I think more specifically wondering what is the Area 1 Agency on Aging role in the arrangements?
we're facilitators, so we are not a part to the agreement. The agreement is between the guest and the host, the home provider, you know, the person that's offering a spare bedroom in their home for rent or service exchange. We provide the information, we provide the documentation, so we provide all the support system to help two people connect with each other and go into the home sharing arrangement in the best conditions possible. So that we're trying to set people up for success, so that they have a good experience going into the arrangement, knowing what are the expectations, and knowing that there is someone like Area 1 Agency on Aging locally that can help in case something comes up. But Area 1 Agency on Aging is not a part to the agreement. So we are not administering the agreement. We do help fill it out. And I actually have one home provider who has a very large home share home. Like she's got like 5 housemates, and she has her own agreement. But I've been putting her in touch with guests or home seekers, and she's comforted because she's an older home provider, so she's comforted in our process, having our process do the screening for her to bring her the potential housemates. But she's got her own agreement. The agreement is between the home seeker and the home provider, and it can be changed by both parties as they wish. And we have quite a few home shares where that's happened, because it's between 2 consenting adults. But we're always here to consult, or mediate as the need arises. I'm going to open the chat, unless.
Yeah, there's a few more questions in there.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna I'll tackle the vetting process in a little bit. We don't have a fee. All our services are free. It was grant funded, and now the program is funded through another source, but it's indefinitely funded. It's really my position. So there's no fee for anybody, really. It's a free service to the community. We do have, and I'll tackle also the standard form, etc. Yes, and as far as taxes on the extra income, I think it would be something that you would want to get individual counseling on, because it's going to be very dependent on your financial situation. And I see that, have you ever been sued by an unhappy party? So we haven't. No, we haven't. We've had one, and I'll mention that, so you'll see the information again, but I'll mention it, that we've completed, finalized 18 matches, and one person caused an issue, but the match happened kind of behind our backs, where we were going through the different steps of our process, and the host and the guests were so anxious to move in with each other that they didn't wait for our process to be completed, and they ended up not being compatible, and it was a little bit of a difficult, messy situation. And I could tell the details about it, but I don't really want to get into it right now. But we didn't get sued. We tried to help, even though it wasn't really a home share match, because they hadn't let us go until the end of our process, but we still supported them in the difficult time that ensued after they figured out that they weren't compatible. Yeah, and I'll talk about our screening process. We do operate out of Del Norte County. I don't have any home providers in Del Norte County yet. I did have a couple home seekers, but it's been harder to reach people out there, because since we've only been around since COVID, so it's been harder to do outreach up there. So there's different types of home share arrangements. We've got the rent only, where the guest is going to pay the host monthly rent in exchange for housing. There's no formal services expected. Of course, you're always going to get the informal companionship and presence in the home. Another one is partial rent and partial service exchange. The guest is going to pay some rent and then will provide services for that reduced amount of rent. And then we have the arrangement where it's a full service exchange, where the guest pays no rent, but instead provides services in exchange for housing. So services are going to be about 12 to 15 hours a week, depending on the situation. And we're going to define those terms clearly in the agreement, in the full service exchange agreement. So I'm going to go over some guest profiles. I'll try and do that quick because I can tell it's already been an hour. We have a couple people who've submitted applications recently, and I haven't approved them fully yet because I don't have any potential matches, and because my time is limited, I'm only 20 hours a week. I will only process fully an application after I've done an interview, once I know that there is a potential opportunity for that person to move into. So we have someone, I talk to everybody. So I have someone called Leslie, who's a 60-year-old woman with a disability. She's currently renting out space for her trailer on her niece's driveway for $400 a month. She sold her home over 3 years ago. She bought the trailer with the money. And now she thinks her niece is anxious for her to leave, since it was supposed to be a transitional situation. Also, the trailer doesn't meet her physical needs. So I'm doing this just to give you an idea, because people sometimes ask me, like, but who are these people who like at that age, because we haven't had any students really apply through the program that much. Who are these people who at that age want to move into someone else's home? So that's why I wanted to give you a couple of guest profiles or home seeker profiles. So Leslie doesn't have any pets. She doesn't smoke. She doesn't drink. She has no weapons to bring with her into any housing opportunity. She does use CBD for physical pain. She's a homebody and will have some physical activity. She has an all organic diet. She's mostly vegan, and she doesn't drive, but she will use dial a ride. And she could afford $550, including utilities. She gets SSI and she has some furniture, but she also has a storage unit, so she doesn't have to move all her furniture in. She has shared housing before, which is a good sign for a housemate. I mean, it's a plus in my book. And she wants a rent-only arrangement. She's currently in Eureka, but she would prefer to move to Arcata or McKinleyville. An application submitted at the beginning of the month as well is for Maya. She's a 72-year-old woman who's been renting a very small bedroom for $300 for over 2 years from an older landlady who wants her out by the end of the month. So that's who I was mentioning earlier. Like, she's the example of someone who in her late 60s started living in other people's homes, like through personal referrals. Okay, that room was offered to her as a favor. And it seems like a very uncomfortable situation right now. She feels like she has to work around her home provider's schedule. She's kind of walking on eggs. It sounds like for most of the time that she's at home. And she helps with the cleaning because, I told this lady, for instance, $300 is very low. It's very unusual for us to have that kind of rent amount to offer. So a challenge for her is that she does have a pet. She has one small poodle, but it doesn't shed. And again, people will tell us, it's an emotional support animal, an ESA. But I have to tell them, the home provider, for the home provider, it's going to be an animal. It's not going to be an emotional support animal. It's going to be a pet for them. So it might be a little bit more challenging to find a home share situation that way. So she doesn't smoke, she doesn't use cannabis, she drinks maybe once a week, she takes long walks with her dog. She used to work in home health and as a prep cook in Berkeley, so she has some cooking skills and she enjoys cooking, and she likes to cook Mexican food and to container garden. She doesn't have a car, so she has to use the bus. She could afford $500 all included. She gets retirement, so she's got a little bit more money than just SSI. And she's flexible on the furniture. She also obviously has shared housing before. And this lady, for instance, she has family. I've been in touch with her daughters and she does not want to move. She loves Humboldt. She wants to stay in Humboldt County, even though that might be a little bit more difficult for her to stay around. And she would like to provide services in exchange for reduced rent. Okay. So these are a couple of profiles of people who have been in touch with us, who have heard of the program one way or another. And for instance, Leslie was telling me, this seems like the most promising avenue for me to find new housing, okay, as opposed to subsidized housing or Section 8, etc. So this is where we're at as far as housing in our county. So some host profiles, someone who submitted an application on May 26, and she's in the process of being approved. Julie is a 73-year-old woman whose physical disability has increased over the past 18 months. She was living with a de facto housemate, a longtime friend who was visiting before shelter in place and stayed through June of 2021. The host is using her living room as her bedroom. So when I come into a situation where people are maybe not completely, I don't want to say not completely honest, but completely, I don't know, they might have a different understanding of what's going on for them. So I didn't realize when I came into the interview that the lady I was talking to in her recliner chair was actually also sleeping in that recliner chair. Okay, so this is why, for me, this situation is in the process of being approved. So I'm showing you some of those profiles because it goes both ways. So we screen the home seekers, the guests, right? We screen them for the hosts so that people going into your home are legit, they're who they say they are, and they fit, they're going to be compatible with you. But on the other end, we want to make sure that the rental, also the room rental situation, is appropriate for the person to move into. So this lady, she also has a friendly pit bull. She uses cannabis in the afternoon and drinks once a week. So she mostly she's at home. She writes a blog on her computer and watches TV. And she has a housekeeper that comes in and walks the dogs and does some basic cleaning. Okay, she has a spare bedroom and private bathroom to offer. The base rent would be $600, but she wants services. She wants someone to help her cook dinner 7 times a week. Right now, like, she's just so she just can't do any kind of cooking for herself. Okay. So in order to be approved, the home would need a thorough cleaning and decluttering in the kitchen. When I visited, there was no room for a housemate to come in and put their own things. So that would be one of the conditions for me to be able to start looking for a housemate for her. So we were thinking she might want to try the stay put services that Area 1 Agency on Aging also offers for free, but she declined those services. I'll follow up with her this week because last time I talked to her was about a month ago, and she said she would get in touch with me, and she hasn't. So I don't want to push it, but just want to be clear on whether she's still interested or not. And That's a home provider who came to us back in July, so a year ago. She applied to the program and she paused. There were a lot of things going on for her. And then she came back to the program after something happened for what she was trying to do with her home, and that didn't work out. And she came back to us, and so her application was still valid for her. Okay. So she's a 64-year-old woman who converted her garage for her own bedroom, office, and bathrooms. She's sharing the kitchen. She's on disability. She gets help from HSS workers. The home is being reorganized and very cluttered. So that's kind of like the condition, is that, you know, things start getting better as far as how they're set up in the home. There's no pets. She smokes outside. She uses cannabis products. She hardly drinks. Mostly she grows ferns and provides education support to children from home. She likes to play cards, to cook, read, watch TV. And she has 3 bedrooms that all share 1 bathroom, and they go for different prices depending on the size. And she says she provides toilet paper, which, you know, is not a bad perk as far as rooms go. She mentioned that her previous home sharing experiences were horrible. So these were home sharing experiences that she, you know, self-organized, right? And so that's why she chose to go through an organized program like ours. And she wants a rent-only arrangement. The housemate needs to be female because of shared bathroom with other female housemates. So we actually have someone who moved in with her a couple weeks ago, and I will be checking in with them tomorrow. And they're currently in the trial period. So, you know, they could, at the end of that trial period, they could say that they don't want to pursue, or, and I would help with that transition as well. Yeah, so that's what I just mentioned here. So unless you have any questions, I wanted to show you a couple home share. I thought putting faces to the program might help. So this is a fairly recent home share, but they were nice enough to pose for me for a picture. So this is Riddell, she's the host, and this is Melody, she's the guest. And the type of home share is full rent. They share utilities. That's in Arcata. I mentioned these dates to show you how fast it can go, but also how slow it will go. So Riddell applied on May 12th, and she was approved on May 21st. And Melody applied on June 7th, but because I already knew that Riddell had been approved, and I could tell that Melody was going to be a fairly good fit. Melody applied on June 7th, and she was approved on the 10th so that we could get to the introductory meeting, okay, on the 10th. And then they started that next month. So that went fairly fast, but it was still pretty much a month as far as also providing notice, etc. for Melody. Okay, Riddell was looking for someone who is easygoing, clean, has a good sense of humor, honest, not a born-again Christian, no gender preference that they could pick up after themselves, mostly happy, grateful, no downer. Okay, so this is what she was hoping to be matched up with. And as far as Melody, she preferred the Arcata area. She wanted a bedroom with a private bathroom. She wanted strong Wi-Fi. Okay, so, you know, a host is looking for a good fit as far as personalities. And for a guest, you know, we start with where do they even want to start living? So that's why I start with the situation. And then during the interview, we asked what would be your ideal home share arrangement. And Melody mentioned, like, you know, that there would be good communication, it would be somewhat flexible, we'd have respect for each other, and there would be a sense of humor and friendliness. Okay, so it seemed like a pretty good match. And, you know, and also as far as budget, everything fit as well. So this is the feedback that I got. I mean, it's recent, so maybe it's the honeymoon stage and we'll see how things go, but they've been through some things already. So Riddell says of Melody, she's very smart, gentle, we facilitate each other. She's very into smells, so I had to clean the toilet really well, okay? So, and it wasn't just with a brush. It was like they had to lift, pull out the toilet, and then replace the ring, okay? We had a rat and mice. We had to take care of those, okay? So, she said it's okay to do those upgrades on the home since I have the money. So, Melody comes in and she's paying rent, and so Riddell's got that money to take care of the things that are happening to her home. She works a lot, so Melody works from home and she works a lot. Okay. And as far as Melody, her feedback, I really like her. She's going to above board to tackle problems. I think it's an adjustment for both of us to live with other people again. So, even though they had both home sharing experience, it's still a little bit of an adjustment. We figured that the smell of urine in the bathroom was from the previous male housemate. So they're working on stuff together. So it's a good communication, and nobody else could smell it, but it was very strong at night. She's really kind. She wants to know when I'm sleeping to avoid making too much noise. We will use a Post-it on my door. So they're finding solutions to the issues. She says, I've been swamped with work. She's so nice, and we have similar personalities. So see, it's still getting a little late. So I have another home share. It's Denise and Sarah. So this one has been going on for 9 months. What am I saying? Yeah, 8 months, sorry. Because they moved in with each other on December 1st. Yeah. And once again, profiles sought by host. So this could be something that, you can have any requirement, I mean, within reason, for someone to move into your home. She wanted someone female because she has her goddaughter who's 14 living in the home in a situation where there's really no door to her bedroom. So she did not want a male housemate, okay? And Sarah wanted a peaceful environment. She thinks my home is my refuge. I want to share the space with someone who also wants that. Okay. So some of the things that they mentioned about each other, Denise and I was over the phone recently. She's the best roommate in the world. What a great influence. And she had plenty of home share experience before, but it was a little intense, I think. She cooks awesome. We have the same background, social services. She really helped me out. Such a gem. Peaceful, positive person in our room, has helped my goddaughter, knows how to get things across in a non-critical way. Such a wonderful service, took away all the stress. So she put like a nice little thing in there for us. And that Sarah was telling me by text, because I'm in touch with people by text message too. We get along super well. I was going to ask Denise for a haircut. She used to be a hairdresser, so I pay her for a haircut instead of having to go find one. So these are things that came up after. So they're finding, really, they found their groove. And in many, many ways, this home share is working out. I love Denise and Cora. We're all such beautiful souls. So, and I added this guest, so in the time that she's been living there, she's contributed, so I put 10 months, so maybe not quite 10 months, but she's contributed $5,000 in rent, okay, and there was a deposit too, okay. And this one is pretty special to me. This lady here, Doris, her granddaughter is actually dealing with all the paperwork, and she's got power of attorney. She is matched with Connie, who's the guest, and that's the second housemate she's had. The first one was there for like a year and helped her out with a emotionally borderline financial abuse situation last year. So we came in and we didn't know half the things that were going on in the household. There was someone who was slowly taking advantage of the situation that she was alone at home. So so this lady started recently, but she's saying she's really liking it. I'm not going to go through the details. It's just getting too late. But she really wanted something with services. She said, I mean, that's one of the higher hours of service that we got as for a guest, she wanted to do 20 to 30 hours of services for reduced rent. You know, she's probably not doing that, but so they do a full service exchange in this case. Okay, and she has a cat, and so she really wanted a home for our cat. And this lady previously was she was couch surfing. She has family in the area, but she didn't want to overextend her welcome with her family. Anyway, so she is loving it. And she, you know, that's what she said to me by text. I think it's going really well. I think Doris and Wendy is Doris's granddaughter. I think they are happy too. Lucky, her little cat absolutely loves it here. Okay, I've been sleeping well every night. That had been an issue for her in the different homes that she'd been staying at. She wasn't sleeping well at all. Has been awesome. Okay, and then from Wendy, who's a little bit more laconic, like she doesn't say quite as much, but she's busy too. So she said that Connie has worked out really well. So they have a great relationship. Okay, so quickly, I've mentioned that already, but I work, I started with 16 hours, so a part-time job, to 20 hours, so half-time, and we have one volunteer who's helping out. We've done 18 matches since the start. We currently have 11 ongoing. The longest lasted for over 13 months, and the most recent was July 1st. We terminated 7 matches have terminated. The longest lasted, like at Doris's, 13 months, and the shortest was 26 days. So it was within that trial period. The reasons for people to terminate were that they either got other housing or personal opportunities. It's been also incompatibility. So, you know, but we were there through that process. One of our housemates unfortunately got sick and died. And then there was a change in the home provider's circumstances. So right at the beginning of COVID, for instance, housing situation got really, really crazy. The average guest income per year is just under $20,000. Most people actually are more around like 12,000 with SSI. And the average rent amount is 410, but you know, it's either 0 for full service to the highest rent that a home provider, a host is charging is $800. And yeah, we don't have very many of those. So our hosts are mostly female in their mid-70s, and just a couple are needing services. Our guests are going to be also mostly female, even though we do have quite a few men in there as well, and they're going to be a little younger than our hosts. As far as home sharing concerns and challenges, we have some that I picked up from our interviews and our discussions with them. So for the host, some concerns would be that you get less privacy, you get another person's things laying around, you might have some discrepancies in consideration for others, less ability to empathize. Oh, sorry, I was looking at the chat. Sorry. Concern like, are we even going to be able to get along? If the housemate didn't like my dog, if they brought lots of noisy friends over. For the guests, it would be the theft by another roommate in a larger home share, for instance, if there were a lot of politics being discussed. If the host was a first-time home share, it might take time to get used to it. And I've observed that as the home share program coordinator. I've seen a host get started with home sharing, and it was a little bit of an adjustment at first. And that it would take time to get in sync with the housemate. And I couldn't live with someone whose views are too different, or keep my cat's claws trimmed, I guess. Or the concern would be people not realizing their effect on others, not caring, the insensitivity. So overall, the concerns or challenges are going to be noise threshold levels, standards of cleanliness, too many visitors, financial irresponsibility or instability, incompatible pets, one person dominating a shared area. So for instance, someone who's always cooking, always in the kitchen, so you never get a chance to get in. Well, a big concern is the fear of living with a stranger, but hopefully after you get to meet them a little bit ahead of time, they're not quite a stranger anymore. Less privacy, dealing with someone else's habits, and overall trust. So we can bypass that. Well, you can just put in the chat maybe what is or would be your main barrier to a home share arrangement. Okay, you can just put in the chat or do the fancy or Slido if you want to. What would be your main barrier, you think, to, or for the person that you're thinking home share could be an option? So Lynette is saying, yeah, pet, smoke, politics, is there an end to it? Yeah. I could, yeah. Yeah, okay. Compatibility across a wide, yeah. Yeah, yeah, loss of privacy, okay. Yeah, and it is big. It is big. Yeah, so being aware of what your main challenge would be, definitely, you know, if you're looking at doing anything like home sharing, you know, knowing what to look for in terms of expectations for your own home share arrangement. All right, so we'll move on to the safeguards and strategies for success. Okay, so the safeguard would be to use a home sharing matching program. So the first one, I'm just going to check the chat real quick. Yeah, rowdy, disrespectful guests. Yeah, yeah, anything that would be disrespectful to the other person also being in the home. Yeah. So the referral program is what Homeshare, Northcoast Homeshare started out with. It's just people. So the home share program would be doing some upfront work of screening, like basic match criteria, but then what we would do is just refer those matches to the home provider for them to follow up and lead the process from there. So we'd be just like, oh yeah, this looks like a good person for you, and then we would leave it at that. A comprehensive program coordinates all pieces of the matching process. Okay, as a comprehensive program, you do interviews, references, facilitated introductions, background checks, recommendations on terms for the agreement, written agreement, ongoing contact, and support throughout the match. So this is our model. Okay, the Northcoast Homeshare program model is that we do the interviews of applicants and we reach out to personal references, like over the phone, so we actually talk to people. We do the facilitated introductions. Once a potential match has been identified, we'll get people together, and I'm here, and people do most of the talking, the parties do most of the talking, but I'm here to make sure that certain topics are being addressed. We will pay for the background checks. We'll pay only for the background checks once people are ready to move forward with a match, because we're on a shoestring budget. We will provide the written agreement if the parties don't have one, and we'll recommend which terms, which terms might be appropriate for that specific home share arrangement. We provide ongoing support. So I contact my very new matches a couple times during the first 30 days. And on occasion, when I know that things might be changing, that people might be in transition, for instance, if a home provider has early stages of dementia, things might change for their relationship as the disease progresses as well. And then we provide mediation as needed. So for Doris, who has had those two housemates, at first, the first housemate that she had, the family, the granddaughter, was not happy with her. Like, she could not see her living there for very long. And we went, and I was right at the beginning of COVID, so we sat outside and we talked things over and tried to figure out a way to make it work for everybody. And Maureen at the time ended up staying for 13 months and was a huge help in dissipating that potentially abusive relationship with the gardener that was coming in on a regular basis at Doris's. So our program is fully comprehensive. Okay, we are there, we're local, you see a real person, and it's not online. You're not on your own. There's always someone to help you work through the home sharing pieces. Okay, this is what our guest application looks like. I'm going to show you a few forms now. So this is, and it's 5 pages long, and it's pretty basic information, but it gives us something to start with. As a home provider, you would get a host application, same thing, 5 pages. So gets you, it asks you some more specific things like, would you be okay with pets, etc., someone who smokes, etc. And then once I get that guest application, I reach out to the person, and if I think that there's potential for them, I schedule an interview, and it takes about an hour as well. For the host, same thing. So I check on those things that were concerns, also, financially, how will you support yourself? What might someone find challenging about living with you? Have you home shared before? What kind of situation have you lived in? Or how loud do you listen to the TV, etc. So we try and cover all those areas of concerns that will help make the match eventually. This is the home sharing agreement that we could provide. That's the template. It's pretty long. It's over, I think it's like 13 pages or something. I mean, it can go pretty fast, but it covers all different sections of living together that will come up on a daily basis. Like, what about guests? What do we say we agree to do with guests? Do we require advance notice of guests? Are we okay with people staying over for at all, really? And if we do, how often? And can they use the laundry room, etc. So we cover all those different sections in that agreement. I have a different one for a partial rent or service exchange. That's the trial period, because as soon as there's services, we try and make it, we look at the situation a little bit more closely. And these agreements are not available online. I can share them with you. Like, if you want to get in touch with me for anything, like, I've provided this type of document to, I think to Sunny, actually. I've provided our home sharing agreement before to her. So it's, it's fine. I'm totally, you don't even have to go through the program. Like, I'll provide those to you, no problem. So these are all the different documents that we go through. Like, for instance, later today, I'll go and help out for a full service exchange trial period. And we'll make sure that we list the different services that are being required in order for the housemate to move in for essentially no rent. So we are not a part or party to the agreement, but we make sure that most of the areas of potential concern or conflict are being covered in the agreement. Okay, and we also have a disclaimer during COVID-19 that people fill out. All right, and as far as strategies for success, really, I think it's the clarity of expectations. If people don't really know what they're looking for in a home sharing arrangement, chances are it's not going to be successful. Okay. So it would, for anybody to come into a home share situation, especially as a home provider, because for guests, it's pretty clear what they're looking for. They're looking for housing. I mean, you know, they need to know also what kind of housing arrangement or a situation can be compatible with their lifestyle. But really, for a home provider, like, what are you looking for when you're thinking about taking in a housemate? I'm just going to look at the chat real quick. Sanj says, yeah, thank you for the agreements. They're very useful and comprehensive. Yeah, and I think they are, because I had one person, a home provider once, who, you know, she has early stages of dementia, and we were going through the agreement with the housemate, and she was getting really ticked off. She was like, why are we even doing this? Like, why are we talking about this? Like, food, and is food shared or bought separately? And, you know, I knew better than to say anything, but it's like, because this stuff will come up as soon as you start living with someone. Okay, and I wanted to show you Deb and her name escapes me now, her home provider.
The truth is that Hollywood's elite.
Oops, sorry. I think they have an awesome relationship. Sorry, let me skip those ads. They how do you say, they verbalize really well what a home provider or what anybody going into a home sharing relationship should do. So let me play it.
The day I'd been here for the first time, she said, well, what is it you're really looking for? And I said, intimacy.
And I was a little alarmed because I didn't know what that word meant to her. And when I asked her, she said, it's being on the inside looking out rather than being on the outside looking in. That was a profound statement. One of the first tests of our relationship came when the moving truck pulled up in front of my house and unloaded her furniture. And I thought surely she would see the superiority of my coffee table to hers.
A dear friend of mine had made it, and I was very attached to it, and I thought it would look perfect in the living room.
I realized that I could win this battle because it was my house, and I could do whatever I wanted, and I could end up in an assisted living facility with my coffee table wedged into my other belongings. And I decided right then that no piece of furniture was more important than the relationship.
Some of the activities that Sharon and I enjoy doing together are coffee on the patio, watching the birds.
There's something about watching the wind and the leaves that just calms me down.
Sometimes I'm concerned that she spends too much time on the computer, playing solitaire, playing mahjong. I do my fair amount of solitaire and mahjong, too.
I try to tell myself that there's some intellectual value in doing this, and I haven't come up with a believable reason yet. I would say to somebody considering this, don't just say, I want someone to keep me from being lonely. You have to think of exactly what you want. If you just guess at it, it's a very squishy target, and you won't necessarily know when you've hit it.
My advice would be to talk about things like, who are you as a person? You know, could we possibly have a life together? What would that look like? Some of my friends looked at me and they said, you're crazy. You're going to be burdened with this. This is not going to be good for you. On the contrary, they now say it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I haven't been as happy since I moved in with Sharon. How cool is that?
Hi.
How are you?
This has definitely been one of the great experiences in my life, and it came at a time when I thought I would have no more great experiences to look forward to. And so Deb's presence in my life has been such a gift.
All right. I just love these two women. So let me go back to, it's pretty much the end. Okay. So let me make sure I get this right. So again, what Sharon was saying, what are you willing to compromise on in order to achieve the goal? She's like, my coffee table or the relationship. Well, I choose the relationship, but it doesn't all have to be like that. But their relationship puts it in very stark contrast. So I had a couple testimonies, but I'm running out of time, so I'm not going to put you through that. I had a live quiz, but it's just way too long. So just I have an explainer for the program. I was going to play that too, but I think you get the idea of what the program is. And I can always share the material with you if you were still unclear about some things. So I thank you so much for listening, participating today. Yeah, really appreciate it.
We want to thank you so very much. This was a very thorough presentation and addressed, I think, many of our issues. And thank everyone for coming. And if you're interested, obviously, you know who to follow up with. She's obviously a very caring person and understands all the issues. And it looks like a very well constructed program designed to help and yet at the same time protect the participants. So you have lots of backup help there with Julie. Good for you for all the work you're doing. We really appreciate your giving this program at OLLI. And I want to say that next week on August 2nd, we are going to have Matthew Marshall, who's the Executive Director of the Redwood Coast Energy Authority, talking about our energy and solar future, lots of which is up in the air at the moment. So it's going to be a very interesting presentation. So thank you again, Julie. Thank you all for coming. Please don't forget to sign up for OLLI if you haven't done that yet. And we look forward to seeing you next week. And we hope you'll participate and consider this program at A1AA. Thanks, Julie.
Thanks, Jane.
I
Thanks,
really
Julie.
appreciate it.
It was really
Bye.
good.
Bye, Sunny.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks. We'll see you soon.